The twin suns of Virex Prime had just dipped behind the broken skyline when Roran left the workshop. He had grease on his hands, dust on his boots, and pain in his knees, but this was normal. That's what it meant to be a human mechanic on an alien world where no one cared what you built, as long as it worked. He turned into a narrow alley, hoping to cut time and reach the shuttle stop before the rains began. But then he heard it, a soft sound like metal scraping against stone, followed by a whimper, not a growl, not a machine. It was the kind of sound that pulled something deep from a man's chest. A cry for help. Small and scared, he stopped, turned his head, and saw movement between two dumpsters. At first he thought it was a broken cleaning bot, but then he saw the eyes, big, glowing, and full of fear. A small alien child was crouched against the wall. Her skin was dark lavender, covered in cuts and old dirt. Her hair, silver and wild, stuck to her wet face. One of her legs was badly twisted, the foot bent inward like it didn't belong. Beside her was a crooked stick with a bolt welded onto the bottom, a makeshift crutch. Broken in half, she froze when she saw him. Her thin fingers grabbed at the wall, trying to pull herself up, but she winced and fell. Roran didn't move closer, not yet. He crouched slowly, setting his tool bag down, and said, "Hey there, kid." His voice was calm, quiet, not too loud. The last thing he wanted was to scare her more. The girl didn't speak, she just stared at him, her lower lip trembling. Then she pushed her broken crutch toward him like an offering. Her hand shook, Roran's heart clenched. He glanced around the alley. Nobody else. No guards. No workers, no one to stop him. Just one lame alien girl with nothing but fear in her eyes. He took a slow breath. "Can I help you?" he asked gently. Still nothing. Then she pointed to her leg, then to the crutch, and gave a single nod. It was all she could manage. He moved closer and picked up the broken tool. It was barely holding together. He'd seen better scrap tossed into fire pits. She had probably built it herself, or maybe someone gave it to her out of pity years ago. He looked at her again. "I'm Roran," he said. "I fix things." The girl blinked, then looked down. She mumbled something. Too soft to hear, but he caught one word. "Kari." "Kari," he repeated. "Nice to meet you." He lifted her slowly. Gently, she was light, too light for her age. She didn't fight him, just held onto his neck with thin arms. Her head rested on his shoulder. She was shaking, but not from fear. From cold, hunger, and pain. Roran took her home. His place wasn't much. Just a corner room above the old engine yard, full of wires, rusted plates, and broken screens. But it was warm and it had water. He gave her soup, wrapped her in a soft cloth, and let her rest. Then he took the broken crutch to his workbench. All night he worked, not because someone asked, not because it paid credits, but because something in her eyes refused to leave his mind. He melted alloys, adjusted length, used soft grip material from his own walking boots. He even added shock absorbers from a hover drone. By morning he had built something simple but strong, light, flexible, and perfect for a small child. As the first light of the twin suns touched his window, he heard small feet tapping behind him. Kari stood in the doorway, holding the wall for balance. Her eyes widened as she saw the new crutch. She limped forward, reached out, and took it. Her hands trembled, but she didn't cry. Instead, she smiled, the kind of smile that made silence feel heavy. She placed the crutch under her arm and leaned into it. Then, with a deep breath, she took a step, then another. Slow, shaky, but walking, she turned to him and said, for the first time loud and clear, "Thank you." "Human," Roran smiled. But just as he opened his mouth to reply, a small beep echoed from outside his window. He looked out and saw a small black drone hovering in the sky. It blinked once, scanned his face, and flew away. Kari's face went pale. Her eyes filled with fear again. "Did they see me?" She whispered. Roran frowned. "Who?" She pointed to the drone. "The Emperor's watchers." Roran's smile faded. He looked at the crutch, then at the window. Something had changed. And it wasn't over, it was only beginning. Roran didn't sleep that night, even after Kari went to bed. Curled up on a folded blanket beside the heater, even after the lights dimmed and the sky outside turned black-blue, he sat at the window, eyes watching the clouds, waiting for another drone to come, but nothing came. Just wind and silence. In the morning, he found Kari sitting near his workbench. She was holding the new crutch with both hands, gently running her fingers over the smooth surface like it was a treasure. "A gift too precious to touch, you made this?" she asked softly. Her voice was still shaky. Still unsure if she was allowed to speak in this place, Roran nodded. Yeah, he said. It's for you. She looked at him with wide eyes. No one ever made anything for me. Then she stood a bit slow, wobbling at first. But she placed the crutch under her arm and took a step forward. Then another. Her eyes lit up. She turned to him and said, I'm walking, Roran smiled. Not just walking, he said. You're flying compared to last night, Kari laughed. A short giggle like she had forgotten what laughter felt like. They spent the morning together. Roran taught her how to balance with the crutch, how to turn corners, shift her weight, and rest her arm properly. She was a fast learner. Even when she stumbled, she got back up without complaining. You're tougher than most soldiers I know, he joked. She didn't answer, but the way her face lit up said everything. By noon, she was walking from wall to wall. Roran made her a warm sandwich from synthetic meat and bread substitute. She ate slowly like she wasn't sure it was real. He gave her water, a new set of clothes from the donation pile, and a place to sit. All the while, something deep in Roran's chest felt different, lighter, as if for the first time in years, someone needed him for more than just fixing machines. But peace didn't last long. Not on Virex Prime. Not under the Emperor's shadow. Later that day, Roran walked to the lower market to find extra supplies. More padding, soft cloth, and parts to build a second crutch just in case. He left Kari inside, telling her to keep the door locked. The market was busy, noisy, and full of all species pushing and shouting. But something was off. There were more guards than usual. Not the lazy patrolmen either. These ones wore silver armor with the golden eye crest of the Emperor's eye. They were questioning vendors, scanning faces, showing holograms. Roran kept his head down, slipped past them, and bought what he needed quickly. But before leaving, he caught a glimpse of the hologram one of the guards held, his own face clear as day. His heart dropped. He turned sharply, keeping to the shadows. His name was being whispered, human engineer, helping a forbidden, violating Code 73 Alpha, criminal, harboring illegal bloodline. Roran reached his home breathless. He knocked twice in a secret rhythm on the door. Kari opened it only a crack, saw him, then pulled it wide. You're back, she whispered. I was scared. We've got a problem, he said. Locking the door behind him, he set down the supplies and looked her in the eye. They know I helped you. Kari froze, her grip tightened on the crutch. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I'll leave. You won't get in trouble. Roran knelt in front of her. No, he said firmly. This is not your fault. He looked at her face, the way her mouth trembled as she tried not to cry. You're not the problem, Kari. Cruelty is the problem, she wiped her eyes. My kind. We were once royal, she whispered. My mother was from the old line, the Jikari nobles. But when the Emperor took power, he called us impure. He banned us, said we were cursed. My leg, 'twas broken during the raid. Roran's jaw tightened. He had heard stories about the Emperor's rise, but never this close. Never from the lips of a child who had suffered from it. They said I'm not supposed to walk, Kari added. That it's against the law. But you made me walk. Roran stood and looked at his tools. He picked up a data pad and opened a blueprint. I'm going to make more, he said. Not just for you, but for anyone like you. A whole new line of crutches, braces, walkers, let's call it Project Hope, Kari smiled, her eyes shining, but outside the window, hidden in the sky, another drone hovered in silence. It blinked once, then vanished. The Emperor now knew exactly where Roran was, and he was coming. The morning light hadn't broken the horizon when the knock came. It wasn't soft, it wasn't polite. It was the kind of knock that made walls shiver and hearts freeze. Roran jolted awake on his workshop bench. Still wearing his boots, Kari was already sitting up, her hands gripping the crutch tightly. She looked at him with fear in her eyes. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. They both knew it was them. Another knock, harder this time. Then a mechanical voice, cold and clear. By order of the Emperor, open immediately. Roran stepped forward, blocking Kari with one arm. He reached for the hidden panel on the wall and pressed it. The room's lights dimmed, and a secret hatch behind a shelf clicked open. Get in, he whispered. Stay quiet no matter what. Kari hesitated. I don't want to leave you. Roran gave a small smile. You won't, he said. Just hiding. Not running. She climbed in, hugged her crutch to her chest, and the panel closed behind her. The door burst open a second later. Not unlocked, not opened, just smashed. 3 armored soldiers stepped inside, their black boots stomping over broken pieces. Their helmets hissed as they scanned the room. Behind them walked a tall alien man with 4 arms, his skin blue-green and covered in silver tattoos. He wore the crest of the Emperor's eye on his chest. "Human engineer," the alien said, voice smooth but sharp like a knife. Name, Roran Hale, citizen of Earth Colony 7. Occupation, mechanic, inventor, unauthorized caregiver. Roran didn't answer. He just stared, standing tall despite the fear in his chest. The alien smirked. "You are under arrest for aiding a member of the Forbidden Line. Do not resist." Roran raised his hand slowly. "I helped a child," he said. "That's not a crime." The soldiers moved forward and grabbed him roughly. One cuffed his wrists behind his back. The other scanned the room with a blaster ready. The officer stepped closer. "In this empire," he said, "helping that child is treason." Roran was dragged out into the cold street. Kari, hidden behind the wall, covered her mouth to stay silent. She trembled as the sound of boots faded down the alley. Tears filled her eyes. He was gone, taken because he helped her walk again. The guards shoved Roran into a transport ship and locked him inside a holding cell. He sat on the cold metal bench, wrists still bound. The ship took off, flying toward the center of the city, the Capitol spire. He had never been there before. Humans weren't welcome inside the higher levels of Virex Prime. Now he was being dragged into its heart as a prisoner. An hour later, the doors opened. Roran was pushed into a long hall made of polished stone. Every step echoed. At the end of the hallway stood a set of golden doors. They opened slowly, revealing a dark throne room filled with glowing lights and thick shadows. And at the center, the Emperor. He didn't look old. He didn't look angry. He looked calm, but the air around him felt heavy, like standing near a volcano that hadn't erupted yet. He wore robes of black and silver, and his eyes glowed faintly, not with fire, but with power. The guards threw Roran to his knees. The Emperor stood and stepped down the stairs of his throne. "So," he said, "this is the human who gave legs to a cursed child." Roran gritted his teeth. "I gave her hope," the Emperor chuckled. "Hope?" he repeated. "You gave her defiance. You gave her a reason to stand when she was meant to crawl." "She was meant to live," Roran said. "You can't punish someone for helping a broken child walk again." The Emperor turned to the guards. "Remove him," he said coldly. "Let the people see what happens to those who challenge the law." A public sentence. At dawn, as they dragged him away, Roran looked up one last time. "Her name is Kari," he shouted, "and one day you'll kneel to her." Not the other way around. The room went silent. Even the guards paused. The Emperor didn't reply, but his fingers curled slightly and his eyes burned brighter. Back in the alley, Kari opened the panel. She stepped out quietly. Roran was gone, but the crutch he made was still in her hand. She looked down at it, then turned her face toward the city spire in the distance. The wind blew her silver hair across her eyes, but she didn't blink, she didn't cry, she just whispered, "I'm coming." The sky over Virex Prime turned dark with acid-gray clouds. Storm sirens howled from every tower, warning citizens to seek shelter. Lightning crackled across the sky, but deep below the city, past the rusted ladders and broken vents, a girl with a limp was crawling through forgotten tunnels. Her crutch scraped the metal floor as she moved. But she didn't stop. Kari's heart pounded with every breath. Not from fear, from determination. She had memorized the city map from Roran's workshop screen. Every red line, every drain pipe, every hidden route. She had listened to him talk about storm tunnels, about airflow systems, about escape paths no one used anymore. Now she used them. Above her, the Capitol spire stood tall. Roran was somewhere inside in chains because of her, because he chose kindness over silence. And she wasn't going to let that be the end. Water dripped from the pipes above. The deeper she went, the colder it got. Her foot ached. Her shoulders burned, but she pressed forward. The wind from a storm vent blew her hair back as she squeezed through a narrow tunnel. At the end of the pipe, a dim orange light glowed. She was close. She reached a wide chamber under the palace. Old storm gates lined the walls. And in the middle, 2 guards stood watching a drain access panel. Kari crouched behind a pillar, her breath silent. She couldn't fight, but she didn't need to. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small tool Roran had given her long ago. A spark baton, barely working, she threw it across the floor. It hit the wall and sparked loudly. The guards turned and rushed toward the noise. Weapons raised, Kari moved fast and low. She opened the panel and slipped inside, crawling upward through a vertical shaft. When she reached the grate at the top, she peered through the holes. Her eyes widened. It was a holding corridor, and chained to the wall was him. Roran sat slumped, bruised but breathing. His hands were bound behind his back, and a tracking collar sat on his neck. Kari tapped the grate twice. He didn't react. She tapped again, harder. His eyes opened slowly, then widened in disbelief. "Kari?" he whispered. She smiled. "Miss me?" "I told you to hide," he muttered. "You crazy girl." "You said not to run," she replied, pulling off the grate and dropping beside him. She took out a plasma cutter and began slicing the chain. Roran blinked at the tool. "Where did you get that?" "Stole it," she said, "from the black market near the tunnel drain." "You'd be proud." The chain broke with a sharp snap. Roran stretched his arms, wincing in pain, then looked at the collar. "Can't break that without triggering the alarm," he said. Kari held up a small disc. "A blocker chip," she said. "Covers the signal for 3 minutes." She pressed it against the collar, and the red light blinked off. Roran stared at her like she'd just built a spaceship from trash. "All right," he said, standing slowly. "What's the plan?" Kari pointed back toward the shaft. "We go back through the pipes, then into the ruins. Outside the city walls too far," he said, shaking his head. "They'll catch us halfway." "Not if we split," Kari replied. "You go through the vents. I'll go the long way." "They'll chase me." "No," Roran said firmly. "We stay together." Kari hesitated. Her fingers gripped the crutch tighter. "You're hurt," she whispered. "I can move faster alone." "I'm not leaving you again," he said. "I'd rather be captured than lose you." They slipped out together. Silent as shadows, the tunnels roared with stormwater from above. Thunder shook the walls as they moved, but every step they took was one closer to freedom. When they reached a broken tunnel shaft near the outer wall, Roran stopped. "This leads to the edge," he said. "But once we go out, we can't come back." Kari looked up. The sky was burning orange as the stormlights blinked overhead. She nodded. "Then let's not look back." They climbed the final ladder and burst into the open field beyond the city. The acid rain had turned to mist and the ground was wet and cold. But they were free, at least for now. They didn't speak. Just walked toward the far lights in the distance, the Jakari outlands. The place Roran had only heard whispers about. The place where Kari had once been thrown away, but now she returned not as a cripple, not as a cursed child, but as the girl who walked with hope in her hand, and a human beside her who never stopped believing. Far behind them in the Emperor's tower, a silent alarm began to blink and a new order was given. Find the human, and bring back the girl alive. The Jakari outlands weren't made of polished towers or shiny steel. They were made of dust, stone, and quiet sorrow, broken houses built from crash metal, hidden among cliffs and sharp rocks. It was a place for those the Empire had forgotten or tried to erase. Kari limped into the village with Roran beside her. The people there stared at them with wide, guarded eyes. Many of them walked with limps, scars or twisted limbs like hers. Some used sticks, some crawled. Some had no crutch at all. A wrinkled elder woman stepped forward. Her eyes glowing faint blue, she raised her hand and said, "Kari!" "The cursed child returns." Kari stood tall. "No," she said clearly. "I return not cursed, but walking." She raised the crutch in her hand like a flag. "Because of him," she added, looking up at Roran. "He gave me my steps back." The elder tilted her head. "A human," she muttered. "Few ever walk with us. Fewer still protect us. But you gave our Kari more than mercy. You gave her movement." The people nodded slowly. A few children stepped forward to touch the crutch. Their tiny hands brushed the soft metal like it was holy. And in their eyes, Roran saw the same hunger Kari once carried. Not for food, but for dignity that night. Roran worked by firelight, fixing broken sticks. Making new braces from scrap, he barely spoke. Just listened to the sounds of grateful laughter around him. But deep inside, he knew something dark was coming. The Empire would not ignore this, and it wouldn't stop at one warning. He was right. The next morning, a shadow ship hovered above the village. It didn't attack, didn't shout threats. Instead, it dropped a single capsule. Inside was a scroll with the royal seal. Roran unrolled it with stiff fingers. Kari stood beside him, heart pounding. The message read, "You are summoned by the Emperor. Not in chains, but by choice, come to the throne by midnight, or the outlands will burn. Gasps rippled through the village. Mothers clutched their children. The elder's face went pale. Roran looked up. He wasn't surprised, only tired. I'll go, he said simply. Kari grabbed his arm. No, she whispered. They'll kill you. Roran looked at her. If I don't? They'll kill all of you. The elder stepped forward, placing a hand on Kari's shoulder. We cannot stop him, she said. But we can stand with him. Kari's lips trembled. But why does he want you now? She asked Roran. Because I did something he fears, Roran replied. I helped someone he tried to erase. That night, under a sky filled with quiet stars, Roran walked back toward the Empire. Kari walked beside him again, but this time her steps were stronger, her crutch steady. They reached the gates of the capital, where a silver hover chariot waited. 2 silent guards opened the doors. No words were spoken. The message had already been sent. The ride to the throne felt longer than before. No chains, no cuffs, no shouting, just silence. But Roran knew that didn't mean freedom. It meant danger wrapped in velvet. The throne room was brighter now. Tall windows let in pale moonlight, and golden flames danced on floating torches. The Emperor sat high above, robes trailing down the steps. He didn't stand this time. He only waved his hand for Roran to step forward. Roran climbed the stairs slowly. Each footstep echoed louder than the last. You come freely, the Emperor said. Why? To save them, Roran answered. They don't deserve your wrath. They defy my rule, the Emperor said. You built tools that gave power to the unworthy. You helped one cursed child walk, and now 10 more stand taller. Roran didn't flinch. I gave them dignity, he said, and that scares you. The Emperor stood. You think kindness is strength? He asked, voice growing colder. I rule with fear because it keeps order. Hope breeds rebellion. Roran stepped closer. Then maybe you should be afraid, he said. Because hope is already spreading. The Emperor stared at him for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled, not warmly, not kindly, but like a wolf waiting to bite. Very well, he said. Let us make a trade, her life. For your obedience, Roran froze. Kari was brought forward from behind the shadows, her arms held by 2 guards, her eyes wide and confused. You came together, the Emperor said. You will not leave together, unless you serve me. Roran looked at Kari, then back at the Emperor. What kind of service? He asked quietly. The Emperor leaned down. You will build, he whispered, only for me. Crutches, braces, machines to heal, only the Empire may have them. Agree. And she walks free. Roran turned to Kari. Her eyes pleaded, but not for herself, for him. She shook her head slowly. Don't do it, her eyes said. But Roran stepped forward and gave his answer. A choice that would change everything. Roran's words echoed through the silent throne room. I agree, he said slowly. I will build for you. The Emperor's lips curved into a thin smile. He raised one hand and the guards released Kari. She stumbled forward, her crutch tapping against the marble floor. Her eyes were wide, her breath sharp. No, she whispered. You can't. Roran, but Roran turned to her with a calm face. Trust me, he said softly. Please, Kari wanted to scream, to drag him away, to refuse the deal he just made. But something in his voice stopped her. He wasn't scared, he wasn't broken. He was planning something, the Emperor motioned. Take them to the royal workshop, he said. Begin immediately. For the next 6 days, Roran worked in silence. They gave him tools, supplies, and guards to watch his every move. Kari stayed in a small room nearby, but they didn't let her speak with him much. Every time she saw him, his hands were covered in metal dust, and his eyes were focused, but she noticed something strange. He wasn't building anything for the palace, not exactly. He was sketching strange shapes on scraps of alloy. He was welding things too small to be crutches and too round to be braces. He was working on something else on the 7th day. The Emperor came in with his elite guard. Well, he asked, have you created something worthy of the Empire? Roran turned around, holding something in his hands. It looked like a walking cane, smooth and silver. But Kari's eyes widened. She knew that shape. It was almost like the crutch he had made for her, but different, thicker, heavier, with a strange latch on the side. This is the first, Roran said. A multi-function support tool. It stabilizes the user, holds their weight, and he pressed a hidden switch. A flash of blue light burst from the top, forming a curved blade made of plasma. Gasps filled the room. The guards raised their weapons. The Emperor narrowed his eyes. A weapon? A tool, Roran said calmly. For protection. Your enemies are many. After all, the Emperor stepped down. He took the crutch weapon and tested it. It balanced perfectly. The plasma blade hummed softly. Interesting, the Emperor said. Very interesting, but Roran wasn't done. He held up a second device, smaller. Round and flat. It fits under armor, he said. Sends out a pulse to disable tracking collars. Kari's heart skipped a beat. Now she understood. He wasn't just building for the Empire. He was arming the broken later that night. Kari found Roran in the hallway. The guards were asleep. Drugged by food laced with a sleeping mist, Roran had mixed himself. Are we escaping? She asked, her voice shaking. No, he whispered. We're starting something. He handed her a small satchel. Inside were dozens of miniature devices, each the size of a coin. Signal breakers, he explained. Slip them to the others. Anyone with a collar, anyone in chains, Kari nodded. Her hands trembling. She understood what this meant. He wasn't just trying to escape the Empire. He was trying to disable it, one broken chain at a time that night. Kari snuck through the halls like a ghost. She passed through servant quarters, kitchens, and laundry rooms. She dropped signal breakers in pockets, under pillows and inside boots, and no one noticed by dawn. Hundreds of slaves and servants had unknowingly received a piece of freedom, and Roran had completed his final design, a walking cane. That doubled as a beacon. He activated it with a tap. And across the palace, hundreds of signal collars blinked once, then went silent one by one. Slaves touched their necks and gasped. The pain was gone, the tracking stopped, and their chains, for the first time in years, meant nothing. In the throne room, alarms began to flash. Guards shouted, systems crashed, and confusion spread like fire. The Emperor stood from his throne in fury. What have you done? He roared. Roran stood in the center of the room. He held the weapon crutch in both hands. I gave them legs to stand on, he said, and now, they'll stand against you. The Emperor raised his hand, and his guards surrounded Roran. But from the shadows, Kari stepped forward. She limped to the center and stood beside him. She raised her own crutch and slammed it against the marble floor. And behind her, doors opened, hundreds of freed slaves and disabled Jakari marched in. Some with braces, some with broken tools, some with nothing but fists. The Emperor's guards turned in confusion for the first time. They were outnumbered, and out of fear they hesitated. Kari looked at the Emperor. Her voice shook but did not break. You tried to erase us, she said, but we're still here. And this crutch you hate, this is not weakness. It's a weapon. The throne room had never felt this quiet. Hundreds of freed souls stood shoulder to shoulder. Their backs were straight, their eyes filled with fire. No longer silent, no longer slaves, Kari stood in front. One foot planted, one crutch steady, Roran beside her. Holding the weaponized cane like a symbol of defiance, the Emperor stood at the top of the steps, robes flowing like shadow and smoke. He looked down at them, eyes glowing with fury. And something else, uncertainty. You dare bring a mob into my throne? The Emperor hissed. You dare threaten the seat of power? No, Roran said, his voice clear. We brought the truth. You rule with chains. But these people, they've broken them. Around the room, guards raised their weapons but didn't fire. Something had shifted. Even the soldiers felt it. A wave of power not built from lasers or law, but from unity. The Emperor's fingers curled into fists. Do you think this changes anything? He growled. You are one human and a child with a stick. Kari lifted her crutch high. This stick helped me walk, she said, and now it helps me stand for others, and this is not rebellion. This is return. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. A woman raised her arm, scarred and bent. I was broken in your minds, she said, but this human gave me strength again. A boy stepped forward. My collar stopped last night, he said. I don't know what freedom is, but I want to learn. The Emperor took one step down. Silence, he shouted, but no one moved, no one bowed for the first time. His voice meant nothing. Kari climbed one step up. Her crutch clicked loudly on the polished marble. I was born in fear, she said, raised in the alleys, crawling like a bug. You called my people cursed. You told the stars we were less than dirt. But this human, she paused, her voice catching. He gave me a crutch, yes, but what he truly gave me was a reason to stand. Roran looked at the Emperor. I didn't come to steal your crown, he said. I came to give these people back their legs, their voices, their lives. The Emperor stared at them for a long, terrible moment. The room was still then, with slow steps. He descended to face them. He looked at Kari, tiny, tired, and trembling. He looked at Roran, worn, bruised, and unafraid. You built something powerful, the Emperor said quietly. A movement. Roran didn't blink. No, he replied. She built that. Kari's eyes glistened with tears, but she didn't break. The Emperor took a deep breath, then turned to his guards. Lower your weapons, he said. This battle is not ours to win. Gasps echoed. The guards obeyed. The tension cracked like ice. The Emperor looked at the crowd again. All of you. You want freedom? You want equality? No one answered. They didn't need to. Their presence was louder than words. The Emperor walked back to his throne. He sat slowly, and for the first time. Looked tired, not weak but aware. He waved a hand. Then take it, he said. You've earned it more than I. Roran stepped forward. But what happens now? The Emperor gave a faint smile. I'm old, he said. Older than you think. This galaxy needs a new kind of ruler, one who can walk through broken alleys and lift the fallen. He looked at Kari. Perhaps. One who was once made to crawl. Kari's eyes widened. You mean me? The Emperor nodded. You have fire, he said, and kindness. More power than any throne can give. Roran turned to her. His voice was soft. What will you do? Kari looked around the room. At the children who once limped. At the mothers who once begged. At the men who now stood tall beside their old masters. I'll lead, she said. But not from a throne. I'll lead from the ground, from every alley. Every workshop, every broken step. Cheers filled the air. Tears flowed, and for the first time in centuries, the Empire shook not from war but from healing that evening. Kari returned to the Outlands with Roran. Not as a runaway, but as a symbol. She began building, teaching, lifting others like her, and Roran, the human who started it all, worked beside her, not for glory, not for power, but because it was right. And somewhere in a dusty workshop under twin suns, he carved a single line into the first crutch ever made, Hope Walks, and now it ran.